Welcome again. In the previous lecture, we have looked into the steps of convert data and display converted data. So in this lecture, we will look into creating batch input session and running the batch input session. So let's execute that step, create batch input session. So here's the file path. You should not change that because it's from the system generated. And if you are using SAP system ECC 6 before 4.0, then which is kind of a very old system. I'm assuming no one should be using that. And then you should select that box. Then because we are not using the hierarchy file, we are using flat file. So you need to make sure you are selecting this checkbox file without session records. Then we have these two options, update file immediately and check file only. So the update file immediately basically is going to process the file in real time. But if you select this option, check file only, then what it does is it only check the file for error. So it will check if there is anything wrong with the file and if there is anything wrong with the LSMW. So I will strongly suggest using that option before you execute your LSMW in the production mode or real mode. So if let's say if I don't select this checkbox session record, like file without session record, you will see what we got here. Let's execute that without that option. So this file is being read, and you can see that we get a message first record in the file is not a session record type 0 because as I mentioned, we don't have a hierarchy file. So that's why we need to make sure we are telling the system. Otherwise, the LSMW will look for a session type 0. So if let's you can see that we just check box that file without session record and execute that. Now you can see that the file was again checked, and it's just a error, it's just a warning, it's just a information message here. So you don't need to worry about that. But the third row right here is very important. You need to see that like where it's saying like the session name, this is the session name the program is going to create. It's saying no termination have been found. So what does that mean? The system does not found any termination on the way when we will process that, which is a good thing. So you always need to look at these words to make sure everything looks good. And if you go back from here now and then what we really need to do is all we need to do is we need to process that session now. So this is the batch session name which is going to be created, and then if and then what we need to do is we just execute that. Once we execute that, this is the message. So what this message tells, as I mentioned, it's just an information message. So your GL should have been created as of now. If you go back, so basically the next step is not really meaningful. It is only meaningful whenever there is an issue with your batch input sessions, or if you select that option right here. If you still remember in the previous screen when we were before we execute before we execute the batch input session in real mode, right underneath of file without session record, it was hold BI session after processing. So it says that you need to hold the batch input session after processing. So what it will does, it will keep that session in your SM30 screen right here. So you will see that session here after processing. Because we did not select that checkbox, that's why you can see that the session is not here for our process. But if I go back and check our uh, GL accounts, they should have been created there. How we check that? Let's look into that. So these are the GL accounts. Earlier nothing was there, but if I execute it here now, you can see that the GLs were created. So you can see that they were created, who created them, all the information, text category, line item, and all the details, whatever we had in the file. So let's check one of these. on the other screen as well. If I go and look into that GL, you can see that the GL was created. Whatever the information we have given, it's there. You can see account balance in local currency, posting without tax allowed, or and then tax categories, sort key, line item display, and then obviously this is the field status graph and material accounts. So that's how basically the BDC or direct input work with the LSMW. So now we just created our batch input session and process it through. So it was all about in this lecture. I will stop here and I will see you in our next lecture.